Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to our webinar today. This is going to be a special one. This is we're going to be talking about general maintenance for turf as well as some ornamentals with Superintendent Shannon Easter, Superintendent of Broken Sound Golf Club. And you've got myself. I'm Barrett Ersek. I'm the founder and CEO of Holganix. So that's and then you have Caitlin Ersek, who runs our marketing here at Holganix. You may hear her voice once in a while. She's helping to run the webinar technically. So with that, why don't we get started, Caitlin? Right here, do we want to, Shannon, do you want to just say hello and introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon Easter, Director of Golf Maintenance and Environmental Sustainability of Broken Sound, and I'm excited to talk to everybody.
Great. Well, thanks for your time today, Shannon. I really appreciate it. I know it's a busy time of the year, and I know you got a lot going on at the club. So appreciate you giving us some time to share some of your experiences with the group. And you know, my grandfather always said, a wise person learns from his experience, but a super wise person learns from the experience of others. So it's a great opportunity for us to learn from somebody with your experience, Shannon. So thanks for your time today. So with that, Katie, why don't you move on to our agenda? We've got this is kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing here today. We've got a brief introduction, talk about Broken Sound in general, and give you some general background on Broken Sound as a club. Then we're gonna do an interview with Shannon and some of his techniques he uses to keep his club in great shape, and the diversity that he has within his, you know, essentially two clubs within a club, and very different soil and challenges associated because of the different soils. And then we'll kind of wrap up with some conclusions, which will be questions. So anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them as we're talking, and then at the end we'll go ahead and just take the time to answer those questions. So please be as interactive as you possibly can be. With that, we'll get started with you know, what is Holganix Bio 800 Golf. So as I had mentioned, the Bio 800 product family of products, Bio 800 stands for over 800 species of beneficial bacteria, beneficial fungi, all living together in that jug, in a highly concentrated, highly diverse microbiome in a jug or in a tote, you know, if you want to put it that way. So that's what signifies the Bio 800 part of the name. And it's really unlike any other microbial product on the market because of its biological diversity. There really is no other product that's got over 800 species of bacteria and fungi that are working together in that concentration. And so it really helps that product stand apart from any other products. The fact that it's Bio 800 Golf simply means that we have it formulated for the golf environment. And in fact, we have it formulated for the golf environment, and then we also have it zoned regionally throughout the country. So, you know, we've got it zoned for, you know, Florida is different than what you would be. Florida golf formula would be different than what you might use in Pennsylvania golf, but they're both formulated for the golf industry. And so when you look at what's in the product and you know, kind of why you want to use it, the microbes are specifically designed to provide nutrient utilization. So basically, fertilizers you're applying are going to get used more efficiently by the plant. They're going to get converted into a form that's usable by the plant. We're also going to be able to pull nutrients out of the soil that are tied up, you know, nutrients that are in the soil but not available to the plant for one reason or another. We're going to help release those nutrients, break them apart, make them available to the plant. In addition, it's going to dramatically improve recovery and playability. And, you know, we do this by really significantly developing root mass. And anytime we can build a deeper, thicker web-like root system, we're going to improve recovery. And that goes into the next bullet point, is the root depth and density, and we'll get to some specific examples of that with Shannon soon. We're also going to get better tolerance from any kind of stress, you know, heat, you know, too wet, too dry, even cold, high traffic, any kind of a stress situation. We're gonna help that plant be more resilient to. And overall, we're really focused on soil health, because if we can improve the quality of the soil, we're going to improve the quality of the plant, and we're going to make whoever's managing those plants' job easier. And so that's really what Bio 800 is all about. By the way, it's not a fertilizer. It's a 0-0-0 analysis. So it's a biological microbial soil amendment that helps improve biological activity in the soil. And we typically use it in conjunction with fertilizers, but it's important to know that it's not a fertilizer as a standalone. It is refrigerated for long-term shelf life, and the reason it's refrigerated is simply because that biological diversity, in order to keep it healthy and active, we put it in refrigeration. These microbes, when they're below 44 degrees, they're essentially dormant, and they can stay dormant for years at that temperature. But once we get them out of that temperature, we need to use it within a couple of weeks in order to keep the viability of it.
And I mean, you guys mentioned that you're using a bunch of different products, which is awesome. Today's webinar is going to be more focused on the Bio 800 Golf formula, just because that's what Shannon has the most experience with. But if you have any questions regarding any of the other products, please feel free to put them in the question box, and we will get to them at the end of the webinar.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kate. So with that, let's talk about using Holganix in golf and sustainability, and how Shannon's used it specifically on his course to hit some of these key benefits. So Shannon, can you comment on how you've used Holganix Golf to reduce your fungicide applications as well as other inputs that we have listed here?
Yeah, so what we do here at Broken Sound is we try to, just like Barrett had talked about, it's not a fertilizer, but we use it to try to maximize the fertility that's in the soil and make it available. So when we go out and fertilize, we actually tailor to each golf course. One golf course has a different soil. It's about 1.5 miles away from the other one. So one's on the old course where we have the tournaments on a giant sand ridge and has extremely sandy soil. And the other golf course is on an old Mecca Farm strawberry field, and the soil is very rich, and they depleted it a bunch before they built the golf course. So one golf course that has extremely sandy soil is just because of the pore space. We actually do 4 applications a year, and we do a wall-to-wall through our fertigation tanks. And then we do 3 over at the new course, which is 1.5 miles away, that has heavier soils, just because we're seeing it last in the soil longer and using the nutrients. But since we've stayed healthier, we have, over the last 5 years, I think we've been using it, we've reduced our fungicide applications by 30%. We're getting farther in between our fertility applications. And when you see the roots that we've grown over at both of the golf courses in a couple slides, you'll see why we were able to extremely reduce our irrigation. Not only with the turf on the fungicide reductions in fertility and water, we're actually doing it around all of the clubhouse plants. We blend it with our own compost, and we're actually not fertilizing our annuals around the clubhouse while they're installed for season at all. Last 3 years, we've not made a single fungicide applications on any of our plants around the clubhouse at all.
Wow,
so,
that's amazing.
I didn't know that.
And just to put in perspective, you know, you're in kind of the fungus and disease mecca of North America down there in southeastern, or whatever you want to call that, you know, the Boca area of Florida, right?
Yeah, I mean, today the humidity is 100%. We had a 1/2 inch of rain, and it's 100 degrees.
Well, that's good weather for disease, huh? And fungus.
Yeah, and that's, you know, when our club in the sustainability part, and a lot of people ask me when I'm speaking at, you know, the EPA or the club managers associations, and they're asking us about sustainability and what they can do. It's not always about recycling and what you take off or pay to take to the dumpster. You know, a lot of the sustainability efforts come from just managing the plant and the turf, and not making just an application of a fungicide because we're worried about what might happen. When we're looking at the plant, seeing what the plant's telling us to do, and elongating our threshold, if you look at the savings, for example, my fungicide budget of $100,000, if I save 30%, just save me 30 grand somewhere else I can use on the golf course. Including the fertility and the irrigation reduction, as in, you know, there's your savings is in your energy. You know, down here I'm $3,000-4,000 a month per pump station and power. You take 12% of that across the board, you start seeing the real savings from the use of the Holganix and what it's doing, not only making your job easier from the plant and keeping a healthier plant and turf, then you start seeing the results in your budget, where you can start using that money somewhere else to better do your golf course or your facility or whatever plants you have around a certain building. Wow,
that's really cool, Shannon. And so beyond obviously the monetary savings, the improvement in agronomics, I understand you've won a couple of awards and have been recognized, not just for using Holganix, but for all of your sustainability initiatives on the course. Can you tell us a little bit about those awards and you know, kind of what they mean?
Yeah, we were the 2016 Environmental Leaders in Golf Award. We've been kind of tagged as the leader in sustainability. We're obviously Audubon certified. We were the second in the United States to be GEO certified, which is the Golf Environmental Organization, and the first to ever be recertified. So there's a lot that goes into it. We're second in the state of Florida in recycling, only to waste management. We recycle 96% of everything on property, and that includes grass clippings. That's all the food that gets taken out of the clubhouse. We have a 53-foot in-vessel digester. We make all of our own compost. In the efforts in, you know, I mean, there's not an award out there that we haven't won yet. And, you know, I mean, we've gone as far as the newest thing that we've done here at the club is we built a solar powered parking lot where we lift the cars up to a second level to increase our floor ratio so we can increase the clubhouse. And,
wow.
and we're paying for all of the power for the clubhouse from the solar powered roof, which all the cars are parked underneath. So, you know, the things that we're doing here is to just, you know, make the world better so that when somebody looks at us or points the finger at us and says, you know, golf courses are bad for the environment, they put all this stuff into the watershed, there's no life out there, we can turn around and say, well, these are the efforts that we've done. We also have 24 beehives. We produce 4,000 pounds of treatment honey a year. We've only lost one beehive in the last 5 years. And you know, Holganix and making us a better place and having a higher threshold has made our plant and turf healthier, where we've had the ability to focus on these other issues and move forward with them so that we can point our fingers back at them.
Hey, what a cool thing, Shannon. What a great way to lead the industry and debate the pundits that all want to, you know, kind of talk to us about the sustainability of, you know, what we do with healthy turf. I mean, it's just a great example of how, you know, our industry is exactly the opposite of what gets said sometimes, you know, down to the pollinators, and, you know, you're promoting the pollinators, you know, not negatively impacting them as sometimes we get told. So it's just awesome to see what you're doing there. And the way I look at it, Shannon, from what I hear you saying is you're using sustainability initiatives obviously to be a better steward of the environment, but it's not about spending more money in order to be more environmentally friendly. It looks to me like the way you're doing it, whether it's the solar on the roof powering the building, or reducing inputs in water, or, you know, producing your own honey and giving it to members, or producing your own compost, it's economically sustainable, not just, you know, being environmentally sustainable. If you do it right, can actually put money in your pocket. Is that fair to say based on what you're telling us?
Absolutely. I mean, it comes down to us all as turf and plant managers across the board. When I saw the people that we're talking to, you know, it all comes down to the healthier our turf is, the healthier the plants are, the more they can take care of themselves, and we can focus on doing the other things that our members or customers want us to do. You know, I know we're talking about Holganix, and for us, Holganix is a huge part of what we do to keep our turf and trees healthy. You know, the less trees I have to you know, pine trees that we're going around, we're spraying single applications of Holganix. We do use the Healthy Grow infused fertilizer around a lot of our pine trees, which has helped in our pine tree decline, which in Florida is a huge issue for us on the golf courses.
Cool.
We make 4 applications a year just around our pine trees, specifically. With it, tees on the golf course, for example, we moved all of our greens mix from the old greens to all of our tee surfaces, which meant that we moved some of the problems and nematode issues that I had on some of the greens to those tee areas as well. And we go out once every other month with the Healthy Grow infused fertilizer just on our tees to help combat and keep the nutrient level where I want with our Holganix up to combat the issues that we've had with a lot of our nematode issues down here in the south.
Cool. Yeah, we've got a section later on where we're going to get deep into some of that nematode data that you've helped us really study and been a great help with. Before we do, you talked about, you know, healthy plants that are going to be more sustainable. Obviously, you know, as we think about making plants healthy, you know, in my mind, it starts with the soil and then it goes to the roots. And so, talk about roots. Tell us what's going on here, Shannon. These are some hairy looking roots.
Yeah, this was the picture on the left as you're looking at the screen. Those were that's Celebration. That was on the new golf course. It's now 5 years old. That's where the tournament course is, the old course. That was during the grow-in. It was a no-till, and we found this section of roots, and when we started going, they just didn't end. They were in a pure sand area on number 9 on the right side of the fairway, and they ended up being 22 inches long. When you look at that picture's only 4 weeks old on the left.
Wow.
So that was the root mass that had grown in the length there. That was pretty impressive. And then the one on the right, that one is less than 2 weeks old. I think it was 11 days if I remember correctly. But what I was impressed with is this area actually got 2 applications of Holganix. Was the reason that we took the picture. It was with Ted Owen back in 5 years ago with Upstart at the time. And when we took it out and looked at it, and there was so much mass in the roots, and everywhere else around it had a lot of mass. But when we saw the double application where the Holganix went out because the sprayer overlapped, was the reason that we actually took the picture, just to show the comparison at the rate that we went out at. That was a double rate of Holganix in that picture.
Oh, that's cool, Shannon. Thanks so much for sharing that stuff with us. And when you think about Holganix improving root development, we're doing it from a couple different ways. One is that we've got mycorrhizae, beneficial fungi in Holganix. So mycorrhizae is a great way to promote the little white hairs that start to begin root development, and we get more and more of those with using that beneficial fungi, and so then that just compounds into thicker, healthier roots. And then on top of that, we've got plant growth promoting bacteria that specifically colonize in and around the roots and help promote better, deeper, thicker roots. And so, and any time you're doing it in an establishment, whether it be planting a tree, a shrub, a flower, laying down sod, or plugging, or just trying to grow roots in general, using the Holganix products will help you get better rooting. And it's a great example of it. Thanks for sharing it, Shannon.
Yeah, and something.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What we did too is prior to planting, before we actually planted the sprigs on the no-till, we were doing what we were calling charging the soils. So what we did is we actually fertilized 3 days ahead of time before we planted anything, and then we went out with a full rate of Holganix so that the fertility was already there. As soon as the sprigs hit the ground, we had like a 0% loss on any of our sprig rates, because even the smallest of the sprigs, when we planted them, had nutrients available to them immediately. So we actually applied our Holganix on the growing prior to actually planting by 3 days. And we kind of named the term of charging the soils because our grow time on the celebration was about 5 weeks, and we were planted, and we were mowing within 10 days on the entire property of everything we planted.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm writing this charging the soils comment down. I'm going to start using that in our marketing. That's pretty good, Shannon. And Shannon, you've been talking about different turf types. Can you talk to the audience about the challenges associated with some of the newer varieties of turf, and how Holganix may or may not help you with that versus some of the older varieties of turf?
Yeah. When we look at what's available to the plants, the old course is Celebration and Typical Greens. Past Palm teas, and the new course we have Latitude 36 and Sunday Ultra Dwarf greens. All different varieties of turf for different reasons. One, we wanted the members to have different playability issues, and the one course is a tournament course, and the other one is kind of set up where the green speeds are kind of just stuck around 10s, and the Sunday Ultra Dwarf is a little easier to just keep there and manage with a little bit thicker leaf blade. The cell inside the plants are a little bit thicker, so it creates a lot easier management system over there for Kevin. So we use Holganix throughout all of our property. In fact, we have Empire Zoysia that we're treated with our Holganix. We also have St. Augustine. The plants around the clubhouse all get treated with Holganix. So it's not something that is site specific. Some of the newer varieties are showing different challenges. For example, the Latitude 36. It's a much finer leaf blade. The cells inside the plant are actually finer than you would see in Celebration. The members seem to like it because it's a lot finer textured. It kind of resembles a bent grass or bluegrass type divot when you hit it. So we're actually making smaller applications, and we're tailoring the Holganix to the fertility applications making it more available to the plant, because latitude seems to run out of fertility a little quicker just because it uses so much in growing. So there's not an area that you can't use Holganix in for, for home care and turf. If you're managing somebody's half-acre yard and you're fertilizing, and you can actually make a Holganix application, you'll be able to make more money by not making as many applications, by saving yourself by using the Holganix and using everything that's in the soil. So applications for the different varieties, there's always one for us to use.
Cool. And in turf care, we can look at it one of two ways depending on how you get paid. You can make less applications, and if you're getting paid an annual contract just to make green, healthy turf, that's going to be money in your pocket. If you're getting paid by the application, then you simply reduce the amount of fertilizer you need to use per acre, or fungicides or water, all these things, and that'll put money in your pocket, and maybe not reduce your application, still show up and leave your invoice, but need to put less down. So that's a really good point, Shannon. Thanks for sharing that. So as I said, you think about healthy plants, it starts with healthy roots and healthy soil. So let's go to the next slide, Katie, and Shannon, talk to us about what you saw when you did your soil tests and your check plots, and how it really impacted your soil in ways we can measure, CEC and organic matter and what have you.
Yeah, the CEC is definitely increased as you're looking at the charts. That was actually at the club course prior to the renovation on these charts.
Shannon, let me hit pause real quick. Can you just explain CEC real quick, just in case there's a few people here might not be totally familiar with the acronym?
Yeah, CEC is your cation exchange capacity, which is the amount of how we want the food to be prepared and available to the plants. In the term that we actually we say so it's not locked up. And so we want to increase our CEC, or cation exchange, in fairways, greens, and allow the plant to have everything that's available to it. Normally, when your CECs increase, your organic matter, as it breaks down, decreases because it's being eaten or used by the biologicals that are in the soil. So even when you're looking at, like on this right here, as the CECs in the fairways increased, you'll see on the organic matter in the fairways that the organic matter decreased, which in our terms for golf is that we want to see the firmness continue to increase on the golf course, because the balls go farther, the plant's healthier, our roots are deeper, and we're spending less money. The areas, for example, on the greens where you see the organic matter decreased, especially at the old course or the club course, is because the greens were extremely old, into the 15, 16-year range. So when we started using our Holganix, we saw a decrease. Every year was continuing to decrease, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25%, which made our greens last longer. They were in rough shape when we got there. We started using it. So we increased the longevity of what we had on the golf course to make it better, make it more playable, knowing that we had to reach our target goal of 15 to 16 years with the economy the way that it was before they were going to start spending money for us to be able to use it.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit about the CEC relationship on the heavy soil and organic matter compared to the sandier soils. How did the relationship change on the different soil types?
Well, it was beneficial on both of them. And on the old course, the sandier soils, the CECs increased a little slower just because there's a lot more pore space. So that's when, like on these numbers that you were looking at, these are in the beginning when we were first taking our measurements. And that's what led us into where we started changing for the soils instead of just planning for the golf course. So the old course is the one that's on a big giant sand ridge, old sand, big pore space. We were having a lot of issues in trying to keep the materials there where they were available to the plant. And the stuff that was getting stuck there was the metals. So this is kind of right here was after our first couple applications where we started figuring out to change and tailor our applications on the heavier soils to the sandier soils. So we started on the sandier soils, we were making more frequent applications at less rates to keep it in the top 4 to 5 inches, because we would often get 2 or 3 inch rains in the summertime is normal for us, and they were not We were losing some from flushing because of the pore space size, not because of they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. So on the old course, or here it's the club course or the new course now, it's a much heavier soil. It had much more organic matter, where we were trying to decrease the organic matter, and we were making higher applications, not as frequent because we wanted them to actually do more work at the time they were doing, and we managed them by watching our soil samples and what was available to the plant on a monthly basis. It's kind of confusing to do golf courses. I'm trying to, but they were directly related, and how we use it is two completely different types of applications on how we manage them, just because the soils and the CECs and everything was completely different due to the CECs and the organic matter that was there.
Yeah, well, I love this example because it shows, first of all, it's something we can measure. You know, we can always say, oh, the turf is better, it's got, you know, it looks better, it feels better, I've got less inputs. But when we can actually measure it, you know, with real numerical measurements the way we have here, it really shows that we're doing something. But what's really cool as well is that you show it to us on the two courses, you know, where one you have, you know, heavier soils with a lot of organic matter, the other you've got the sandier soils that are flushing, and we show how we're improving CEC and the soil's functionality on both soils, on the two opposite extremes. And so I really appreciate you sharing the data with us. And then here it says CEC on greens without Holganix Golf, 5% decrease. Can you explain that a little bit?
Those were, that was at the old course. We still have those greens, believe it or not. Now they get Holganix, but at the time we were getting ready to rebuild the greens when we did the renovation. So we were not treating those because we were going to do them last. So when we went in and actually measured it on our monthly basis, compared to where it was prior to, and where it went, and all the soils that were directly around it that we tested to see how effective the Holganix was, the greens actually declined in their CECs, which meant they were holding more moisture. They were much softer. The playability was decreasing. And then we decided not to redo those greens, and we started our Holganix applications. That Barrett too, these are when we were still spraying it before we could even fertigate it on these numbers, by the way.
Right.
So we went in and actually started applying Holganix on our greens because we saw on the club course what the numbers that we had increased, and to decrease the thatch on those greens. And now, Blaine Cooper, who was our tour agronomist last year when we had the tournament, he actually used the pressure test, and it was the first time that he had ever got a pressure of over 10 pounds on greens over 12 years old ever. And the normal for our greens over the last 5 years, they had increased pressure by about 1.5 to 2 foot per year, which was showing you how much we were getting rid of the thatch and managing our CECs. So that was just another tool in showing you what the Holganix is doing over the applications over the years. It's continuing to improve. My agronomics haven't changed. We verticut, we aerify, we top dress the same. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years, so my program hasn't changed. The only thing that changes is the continuous applications that we have made. And the only thing that we apply that would actually do that is the Holganix. So it's continued to improve the greens that are now 17 years old over the last 5 years.
Wow. And talk about money savings. I mean, you could have done those greens and gotten there, you know, through brute force, or you can get there by adding the right biology and over time, you know.
Right. I mean, currently, I mean, if we were to rebuild the greens today's day, that's about $800,000 for 3.25 acres of greens.
Yeah. Wow. And just so everybody understands what we're talking about here, you know, when we reduce the thatch, the reason the Bio 800 Golf is able to reduce thatch is because we've got over 800 species of bacteria and fungi, many of which are thatch-eating bacillus. And so they're going to go in and they're going to feed on that thatch. They're going to break it down, turn it into food sources for the plant, and make that thatch much less of a problem. Obviously, you're still doing the mechanical process of keeping thatch in check at the same time, but it's that combination that allowed us to get the pressure tests up because the thatch went down. Less thatch is less spongy, you know, makes it much more viable.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks, Shannon. Yeah, so we talked about soil, we talked about roots. Let's talk about renovations. I know, I think you've got a renovation underway at the moment, and in 14 you had some massive renovations. Talk to us about how you use Holganix into the renovation process and how it helps you.
Right. Well, the biggest part was when we started seeing the results from the 2014 renovation on what I was telling you when we started calling it charging the soils. We saw the benefits on the first 3 or 4 holes that we did. It was the 5th renovation that I've done. I rebuilt the Champ at PGA National, which is where they have the Honda Classic in 2003. So I knew what to expect. From time to time, I've built golf courses over the last 30 years. But when we saw the difference in the application on number 1 and number 6 were our first 2 holes that we regrassed at the old course, and we started seeing the benefits and how quick it was growing in the Celebration. We all knew that Celebration at the time was a very aggressive turf variety. But I was looking at other ones and apples to apples. There were 3 or 4 other golf courses around us that were all started at the same time, and we were planting 3 or 4 holes at the same time. And I had a couple of the general managers from a couple of local clubs that I won't name that were working at the same time, and they kept coming over every week to see where we were compared to where their clubs were at. And we saw the benefits from the Holganix as it started. It was filling in so fast. It was, like I had said before, we were mowing 1/2 inch in 10 days.
Wow.
And then that is kind of where we figured out the key was of what we were doing with the Holganix then we started putting the next couple holes were 2, 5, 4, and 3. And we actually went out and put the fertility out, and then we put the Holganix out prior to, so that when the sprigs actually hit, I'll never forget. I mowed in 7 days, number 2 fairway, the first pass down in 7 days. And still have pictures of it today, but and we were throwing grass probably 5 or 6 feet out in front of the mowers. So that's how we're using it, as in when I tell you charging the soil. So we did the same thing on the other side. This last year, we rebuilt the new course, completely redesigned, new irrigation, new greens, everything. And we planted it with the Latitude and the Ultra Sunday Dwarf on the greens. And we did the same thing. So prior to actually planting the golf course, we would go in and make our rates. And we fertigated everything that we did. The first golf course in 2014, we sprayed everything. And then with the new renovations, as superintendents, we all know that most of us we're busy enough, our people are busy enough. When you're making a wall-to-wall application, it's a lot easier to fertigate if you have the ability to fertigate. So what we did, we actually would turn off the other holes, fertigate the 3 or 4 holes that we were actually going to plant prior to, and put the fertigation all out through fertigation. So
you ran the Holganix out through the fertigation.
That's what we do now. We don't. Simplicity for us is important, just because we're all busy enough as it is. Around the clubhouse, the applications are done with backpacks, and/or spray rig on the front lawns, the clubhouses. But other than that, everything in golf, we have 250 acres of maintained golf course that are all fertigated with Holganix.
Yeah.
So,
how many holes is that?
We have 36 holes, 2 driving ranges, 2 clubhouses, because they're separate facilities.
Right.
So everything we do, we have the simplicity of doing it. We're in Boca. We have high expectations. Our golf courses are, they expect them to be what they pay for. And, the Holganix for us in the renovation is just part of the renovation from now on and forever that I will do, in charging soils and making it as healthy as we can. So anybody that has built a golf course or that has sprigged a yard, knows how important it is that, the ones that are 3 or 4 inches long, the sprigs are normally going to survive, but the key is to not losing the one that's a 1/4 inch long that gets cut in and just has one tiny leaf, of it being able to get enough nutrition to actually start growing and fill in the small voids is where the difference is in planting a golf course, opening it. Both golf courses, one opened 6 weeks early, the other one opened 8 weeks early. So,
wow.
I can attribute a lot of what we do with our plan and charging soils and having it ready to go to our Holganix applications, for sure.
Neat. Well, thanks for sharing that, Shannon. So we've covered soil, we've covered roots, we've covered the renovation. At the beginning, you mentioned a little bit around nematodes, which was perfect to kind of tease everybody. Nematodes, parasitic nematodes are a big problem in Florida. They're not a massive problem in turf around the country everywhere, but certainly in Florida and some of the other warmer environments with sandy soils, parasitic nematodes are microscopic worms that will burrow into your roots and dramatically negatively impact the healthier turf. And so with that being such a big problem down in your area, Shannon, it's something you've been studying a lot, and frankly, you helped us understand how microbes can positively impact, or I should negatively impact nematode populations, positively impacting the plants. Can you tell us, we've got some studies here that you did. By the way, we did not do these studies. Shannon did these and then shared the results with us. We didn't even know he was doing them. So Shannon, tell us what's going on here and what you learned.
So when we started, obviously in Florida, we know that, Nemacure is going to the wayside or is gone. If anybody has it, it's worth its weight in more than gold. So for us as managers, turf managers and or plant managers, we deal with, in Florida, our nematode counts are normally through the roof. Huge issue, especially at the old course and the club course. The treatments, were far in between. The nematode counts were high. As you can see here, sting, root knot, and lance were off the charts, all in treatment areas for us. This was prior to our first Holganix applications, just prior to planting. So after 1 year, we went through and went back, and you can see that we almost eliminated all the sting and lance, and our root knots dropped down into manageable numbers. And the turf has already seen it. In fact, on the old course today, which is now 5-6 years old, still zero. Obviously, we're managing our Holganix, and we have not had to come in and make any applications for any nematodes. Here it says club course. It's changed the name. It's now in the new course. Prior to changing that golf course or redesigning it, these were the numbers that we saw. Had huge numbers, just complete headaches. On that golf course at the time, we had the old traditional TIF sport, which was a challenge down here for a lot of people. At the time when everybody put it in, it was supposed to be the newest, greatest hot thing. A lot of us down here had issues with it. So anytime it got attacked at all, it would automatically, spurge would pop up. It was really difficult to manage on a timely basis. And when we just redid the golf course, and now we moved, obviously, with the new construction, we've had some pockets of nematodes have popped up where our counts are a little bit higher, and then we've seen some spurge. And over the last 3 weeks, as soon as we see them, we actually go out and make a Holganix application. Verify, we use our own compost to make a Holganix application. And within 2 to 3 weeks after each one of those applications, now we've not had any spurge. If I could show you the pictures, it would blow you away on how healthy the turf is. And it completely gives the fungi and these numbers. And when we saw it, when we started making the Holganix applications, when I called Barrett, I said, Barrett, you need to come down and check this out, because these numbers don't make sense. And the only thing I've done different in the last year from when we took the initial counts was add Holganix. Our Ronstar applications were the same, 4 times a year. The fertility hadn't changed a whole lot. So the only thing that directly impacted our nematodes was the Holganix independently. And these are the numbers that you're seeing. And,
Yeah.
I took them myself. I sent the nematode assays away. There's no doubt. And we've continued to see them improve. In fact, some of the root knot numbers now are at 0 or single digits.
That's awesome. And we're so grateful for you sharing this with us back in, I think it was 2015 when you first did this study. We had people tell us that they saw nematode reductions, but we had never had anybody really study it and measure it the way you had. But once you did, one of our PhD microbiologists that work at Holganix got really excited, and he said, "Look, we've got to study this deeper." And so since then, we're now on our 4th year of university studies, studying nematodes in many different varieties, similar to what you were showing there, Shannon, with the lance, the sting, the root knot in agriculture. So we have soybean cyst nematodes, corn lesion, tomato root knot, all similar families to what you were looking at. And so we're studying them at the University of Illinois with a really well-known nematode scientist. And what we're seeing is really exciting. And really, Shannon, you led us to this. This picture that you see here, it might not look that exciting to you, but boy, it's super exciting to me, because what you see here is a Holganix microbe, basically, that has entered and killed a parasitic nematode. And so the scientist was actually able to capture it. And they're doing things like DNA sequencing, where they're actually taking the dead nematodes, doing a DNA fingerprint analysis on what's inside that dead nematode, and then matching it to the microbes that we're able to provide him through the Bio 800 technology. And we're able to identify the specific microbes that are entering and stopping the nematodes. They're also suppressing egg hatching. And at the same time, we're building roots all the time, as Shannon's already covered, which is exactly what nematodes are doing to negatively impact the turf. They're eating and destroying roots while we're growing roots. So we're helping the plants through roots, but we're also slowing the nematodes down through microbes that are negatively impacting the nematodes. And in fact, Shannon, I'm not sure if I told you this or not, but you know, because of this exploration that you led us on, we've actually filed for patents on what we believe is a novel new discovery on using microbes to slow down nematodes. And I think in the next couple of years, you'll see a Holganix Bio nematicide specifically marketed for nematode reduction. In the meantime, if you're having nematode problems out there, or if you even suspect you have nematode problems, simply use the Bio 800 for soil health, plant health purposes, and you're gonna have those microbes in that mix, and you're gonna see a reduction in nematodes just like Shannon did. So really cool stuff, Shannon. It's really helped us develop our technologies further and understand what's going on. So thanks for what you did there.
Oh, that's amazing. Keep it up.
And so I think this might be our closing slide before we get to questions. Actually, I say it's our closing slide. It's our closing question for Shannon before, and then I have a couple little topics to cover just to give people some resources. But as you look at the industry, the golf industry, Shannon, what kind of trends are you seeing out there that you know, you're a leader and you're out there traveling into Asia and seeing what's going on in other parts of the world? You're on lots of different courses in the country, and what kind of trends do you see for the industry that we should all be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I consult from Japan to Singapore to Cancun to local clubs around here. A lot of the issues are what you just talked about. Controlling nematodes is a giant part of our industry, and our ability to manage them in the old traditional ways of just making applications of Nemacure, and then some of the new methods that are out there. Some of the new methods attack sting, some get lance, some get root knot, some don't touch anything. Today, with the trends in environmental sustainability, finding the ways of thinking outside the box to be effective in treating nematodes, and not just nematodes, but reducing the amount of fungicides that you need to use, and making your golf course healthier so that people don't point their fingers at you and say, well, there's a golf course, so he's doing everything negative that he can do to environment to impact the environment through their golf course and how they manage. They just spray, they do this, they do that. Is to get out there and talk to your environment, communicate with them. We do a lot of tours. We do probably 20 tours a year. We have the city of Boca and Del Rey and all the managers for the cities come see what we do so that they can do the same thing in their facilities. A lot of these municipalities and county and cities own their own golf courses, and if we can show them the way to help them manage them through the environment and sustainability, and using Holganix and other products to make us healthier and impact the environment less, they're much more apt to go out and tell the community and put it out there in the news how we're trying to help the environment and be stewards of the environment, and continue to move forward with the next line of defense in a lot of issues that they don't even know about. For City of Boca puts out like $10 million worth of annuals, and they spray them full of fungicides. So if we could go out there and teach them how to prep it and not use any fungicides, and let the plant use what's naturally in the soil, whether it be compost that they put out once every 2 years, and let Holganix make what's tied up in the soil is available over 2 years instead of fertilizing and putting out fungicides and insecticides, that would help everybody in every club.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you got to make an introduction for me, Shannon, to the agronomist over there at the city of Boca, see if we can help them.
Absolutely, they know about you.
Okay, and you mentioned the annuals that they plant. How many dollars an annual they plant? I remember you telling me about your annuals and how you actually were able to grow them so much that you're able to basically reduce part of your annual budget. Can you tell that story real quick before we get into the next slide, which is about resources?
Well, last year was a crazy year. Last year we had kind of a warm winter. But we use all of our own compost prior to putting our plants in annuals around the golf course or the club. And we go through and we spray Holganix on all of the areas on the compost that we do. We plant all of our annuals directly in it. Like I had said earlier, we haven't sprayed fungicides or fertilizer on any of our annuals in years. And last year they got, unfortunately, so tall, and at the end of February they were over 5 feet tall that we actually had to remove the ones that were in front of the windows because they got so big.
That's cool.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was definitely impressive until I'll just have to use a little less Holganix in front of the windows this year.
and weren't you able then to remove some of them because there were so many that you did, and you were able to actually save on purchase?
Correctly. Actually, what we're going to do this year is because they got so big in front of the windows, we're actually going to stagger them instead of where we had 2 double rows. We're actually planting them on angles from each other instead of directly on. So we actually cut our annuals around the clubhouse in half this year on what we're planting.
Wow.
Which
That's
saved
cool.
us. Yeah, it's about a $22,000 savings.
Money in your pocket, huh? How much dollars do you think that cost at Holganix? Just roundabout. I mean, just kind of off the top of your head.
Oh,
just for those annuals.
I sprayed less than $700 or $800 worth of Holganix around the clubhouse.
Yeah. So 700 got you 22 grand.
For the club.
For the club, anyway.
Yeah, that one did hit my maintenance budget, unfortunately. If you want to, you can we'll try to fix that next year.
I got you. So with that, it's great. We heard Shannon talk about, how Holganix has helped him with soil, with roots, nematode reduction, renovations. We even heard about how he's using it on his pine trees and his annuals. So, bottom line, if you're growing something in soil, I don't care if it's corn, performance turf or flowers or woodies, we're going to help you with the Holganix products. A couple resources for you if you want to dig deeper. We've got Shannon's case studies here that you can access with these links. You can also get a recording of this webinar. We will send it out to everybody that's joined.
Along with the resources.
We've got 70 case studies in addition to Shannon, so it's not just, we've got case studies on many different turf types, plant types, soil types, and if you're looking to be introduced to a rep from Holganix who you'd like to talk to and ask more questions, we'll give you that information as well. So this is just a slide for you to dig deeper if you want to. And if you are a Ewing customer and you're doing any kind of a seeding or establishment, we can help you improve establishment on your seeding, whether it be seeding, sodding, any kind of a new planting, and get a $25 discount through Ewing. This is their sponsored kind of ad that they're helping to support Holganix and helping to support getting you some Holganix at a discount. So if you're buying from Ewing, this is a great opportunity for you to save a couple bucks.
And you'll be sent this as well.
Yeah, you'll be sent this as well. So our last slide is what, Caitlin?
It is contact information.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I wanted to make sure everyone got your emails. Shannon was even nice enough to offer his email too.
Yeah, so Shannon, you told me to let everybody know they reach out to you with any questions at all?
Yep. And if they want to, like if they have a bunch of stuff that they want to just email me their number and then I can call them back and actually just talk to them, whatever
Cool.
they need.
Well, thanks for making yourself available like that, Shannon. By the way, it looks like Shannon might be holding a can of beer there. That's his honey that comes off of his property. You mentioned earlier, 26 hives produces 4,000 gallons of honey a year. Is that right?
Pounds.
4,000 pounds of honey a year. So pretty cool. And then they give it out to their members. So that's kind of cool. You guys got my contact information. Reach out to me if I can be helpful for anything as well. So with that, if anybody has to go, we understand. Anybody wants to hang out, we're going to continue to answer questions.